schedule today in terms of quorum. So we are just going to get right into this meeting. My name is Rachel MacArthur. I'm a policy analyst for the Criminal Justice Commission. And just a few housekeeping items really fast. This is a public meeting. And so it is being recorded. Just a reminder, this is very similar to meetings in the past. The chat has been disabled, and so please don't use the chat. If you do have a question or a comment, just simply raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak. Any specific questions that the Grant Advisory Committee has regarding these supplemental applications, we just ask that you direct them to CJC staff rather than any potential grantees that are in this meeting, so that we can answer those questions just to kind of avoid that back and forth between the grantees and the Grant Advisory Committee. So let's get going. This is an overview of the schedule today. Like I said, we are kind of on a tight schedule just in terms of being able to achieve quorum. I know that there are at least 2 people that have indicated they have a hard stop at the end of the first hour. And so we are...
All right, Constantine. All right, Sterling.
Oh, so there we go. We are going to try to get through, all of the application requests within the first hour. And so it's a very tight schedule. I'm going to just do a very quick refresher in terms of where we are and how we got here, and then we'll jump into the requests themselves and then have a discussion. There was a bit of overage in terms of requests, and so we'll talk about possible cuts or targeted reductions. And then at the end of the hour, we will potentially lose quorum, and so after that we can continue discussion, public comments. So very tight schedule. The good news is this is a very focused meeting today. We are trying to get this supplemental funding out before the end of the year, before the next legislative session. If these decisions are not made today, then the money will not go out before 2023. And so that's kind of where we are. That's the need for us to do our due diligence as well as understand the urgency of making these decisions while in this meeting today. So, William, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, is it purposely no chat in this meeting, or?
Yeah, yes, we disabled the chat just because it's really hard for us to track the chat, and because it's a public meeting, we would have to read everything out loud into public record, so we just disabled it. So if you have a comment, just raise your hand or unmute yourself and you can speak. So
okay.
Yep. Okay, so here's how we got here. We reached out to grantees and the Grant Advisory Committee for feedback on the use of supplemental funds. The commission, we met last month, and the commission approved a CJC recommendation to distribute those unallocated funds to current grantees. And then the grantees were asked to submit a budget request outlining those funding requests. The rules and why we are here today is they require the supplemental funds to be awarded under the same criteria as the original funds in the application rounds. So grantees, when submitting that budget request, were required to ask for additional funds that would enhance or improve their current programs as they presented it to you all in the application round. Okay, so that is where we stand today. So the overall purpose of today's meeting is for you all as members of the Grant Advisory Committee to determine if each grantee's request for additional funding is in line with the same criteria that was analyzed and approved in the application round. So all of these programs have been approved by you all, and your job today is just to make sure that these requests meet those criteria that you approved, I think back in April or July. And so due to this very narrow focus of just enhancements or improvement of the programs themselves, the funding amounts that the grantee requested will not be presented in this discussion. Okay, we are just looking at what they are requesting to see if it enhances or improves the program that has already been approved. Okay, does everybody, any questions on that? Okay. Okay, so the CCBUTI Peacemaking Court, the approved program was that funds will be established, will be used to establish a community member-led peacemaking court to recruit and train peacemakers. This was the program that was approved, and their funding request through the supplemental round is just a second round of peacemaking training next fall, in fall of 2023, and some funding for restitution, as they recognize it as they divert more people into the peacemaking court, that there will be a higher need for restitution for those that are participating. Any questions or comments on these requests? Okay, I did forget to mention, as in previous ones, I apologize. We're just going to kind of come to a consensus as we go through each application. And so I will consider no comment or questions as a consensus of approval, if everybody's okay with that, and just kind of move on to the next one. Okay. The Community Restorative Justice Program, or CRJ, the program that you approved was to expand the existing Community Restorative Justice Program that will support both harmed and responsible parties across Lane County. They are asking for an increase in personnel capacity, outreach and partnership coordinator, which would be a new position. Laptops for new staff, rent, and then technical assistance from RJCO. Just want to note that you'll see that particular request among multiple applicants through this presentation. It is something that would be a statewide technical assistance through that organization. And CJC staff supports that. I just kind of wanted to make note that it's not specific just to this application. You're going to see it a couple of times. So, William, I think you had a question.
Just had a question. So I'm on RJCO. So I probably should abstain from this vote. Do we still have quorum if I do that? So that, I mean, it's a personal choice. If you would like to abstain, you're not required to. Okay. But yes, we still have quorum if you decide not to comment on that. So, okay. All right. Elaine, I think you were next.
Yes, I'm curious about the executive director funding coming out of.
It's just to increase the capacity. It's not a new position, it's an existing one. And so it's just funding.
That's my question. So it, when I'm doing that in a grant, I guess if their executive director is part-time and they're adding time to the director, I'm just trying to understand what the increased capacity, whether that falls under, if it's an existing position and they're adding money to pay for the position, whether that falls within the use of these funds. That's all I'm asking. I just want to understand it.
Yeah, the explanation that they gave is just that they're going to assist with all program areas in an effort to it's basically just an increase of their capacity to be able to assist within all areas of the program, as well as the use of supplemental funding.
I'm still not getting my question answered. My question is that I have 40 hours or 50 hours a week that I'm working, and so more money to me doesn't change what I have time to do. It supplements my pay, but it doesn't actually free me up from other things so that I can do that. So I'm just trying to understand how more money to the executive director gives them more capacity if they're already full-time. Does it dedicate them more specifically to this program and take them away from something else, et cetera?
And I guess, Elaine, you raised a question in my mind also about this. And so I'm just wondering, are they kind of along the lines of what you're saying? Are they going from 6 hours of working to 8 hours of working, or how is that happening?
Where do we squeeze out the extra time? Is it because they're dedicated to this more than something else now? Because you could pay me $20,000 more and I wouldn't have new hours to give to anything, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, so the increase that they are, that they indicate in their budget sheet is that it's the percentage of time per month is about 20%.
Which is different than what they originally had paid for in the budget. Okay.
So it's just an increase in capacity, essentially. It's allowing them to do other things. Sorry.
It's Simon. I feel like maybe that without knowing exactly what they were thinking, but it feels like they're saying this project is taking more prominence within their overall kind of suite of programs, and they're therefore saying we are gonna kind of devote more of the executive director's time to this project. And Elaine, maybe that does mean the ED is giving less time to some of their other projects. They're saying it's taking a greater importance in the ED's overall time commitments. That's how I interpret it, based on that feedback.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Simon.
And I guess just like William, I'm also on our JCO on the coordinating committee, and we had some emails with the CJC that we know I guess I'm saying personally, kind of by Oregon rules, etc., allowed to vote on any appropriation because we're all volunteers at RJCO, other than a part-time individual who isn't a grant advisory committee member. But I think a few of us have said, we don't want to be voting in favor of funding for RJCO. We'll vote in favor of all of the other elements of a supplemental funding request.
Kristen, if I may, real quick, the original request for the executive director and the original application was 10%. So this is an increase in capacity for that executive director. Sorry, go ahead, Tristan. I know you had a comment.
I was just wanted to kind of dovetail or piggyback off what Simon had been saying, or maybe this is a question. I guess I kind of share some of the questions that Elaine was having around this role, specifically in regards to how this is increasing capacity. So it sounds like the executive director will be spending more of his time or her time on the RJ programming of CDR. I guess I'm curious about, pre-existing funding for that role. And maybe this is like too granular of a question, but theoretically, if there was already funding for the role of executive director, is that money that's going elsewhere to support things so that we can support that role so that that person can focus more on the RJ program? I just want to make sure that we're not, granting funds where funds already exist. Oh, and I guess I would also note that I am also on RJCO. Yes, and we did exchange some emails. I felt comfortable making decisions around that funding because I'm not involved in any of the financial aspects of RJCO and I don't receive a financial benefit. But I think perhaps just for consistency's sake, I'll go along with Simon and William and abstain from those specific portions of the requests.
Thank you, Tristan. Any other comments? Feedback with CDR?
This is Vanessa. As an executive director myself, it really makes sense to me what they've asked for. I do this in my own programs. When you're shifting from, the oversight of so many other things to something else, you do need to have those additional funds to increase that capacity. So yeah, makes a lot of sense to me.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rachel, we are approaching our 5-minute mark.
Okay, thank you, Casey. We're keeping you all on task today just because we have to get through this in the first hour. So any other issues with or questions or comments with this request, or can we move on to the next application. All right, I see an okay from Ashley, 2 of them, fantastic. Okay, conflict artistry, community restorative justice. The approved program was to use the grant funds to implement a pilot program to provide community-based restorative justice in Lane and Lincoln counties. And then there's supplemental funding requests are legal support for program implementation, a training, the Northwest Justice Forum, and other available trainings as they come up, outreach materials, and RJCO technical assistance. Comments or questions on conflict artistry requests?
Abstaining from the RJCO portion of the request, I think that these are all very good requests, and yeah, I would support this.
Yeah, I follow Tristan's comment, but and I do support this. So, and I really like the legal support. That is not me. So I totally agree with the legal support for program implementation, and I think it's awesome that they wrote it in there. So totally support this.
Same.
Okay. Any other comments? Perfect. Deschutes County Emerging Adult Program. They will use, this was approved to use the grant funds to operate the Emerging Adults Program in Deschutes County. It directs young adults and responsible parties, and young adult responsible parties and harm parties out of the criminal justice system and into a restorative justice alternatives. So they are asking for life stability funds, increased personnel capacity, same kind of concept as the previous application, supplies, meeting rental space, background checks for facilitators, Think Kids training, and then they have also asked for funding to do a statewide RJ workshop that would be beneficial to all of the grantees that we have, as well as anybody else that would like to attend that specific workshop.
And then this is Ashley, and I am abstaining from this request.
Thank you, Ashley.
Is there more? I didn't quite understand what the statewide workshop is. Is that something that they're putting on, that somebody else is putting on? I'm not quite sure. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, they're willing to host it basically, and that they would be putting on for everybody, would have the ability to attend. It would just be Deschutes County would be the one that would be hosting it, essentially. They made this offer, I believe, back in the application round, and are just using this supplemental funding as an opportunity to go forward with that.
That would be specific to transition age young adults. Is that the focus of the training? Is that why they would be doing something like that?
Is it okay for me to jump in real quick? This is Kathleen from Deschutes County.
Sorry, Kath, I am going to read what you wrote, Kathleen, and I think I'll take it just so it doesn't get into back and forth. Basically, it's open to all grantees and other interested counties to connect together in order to support collaboration, discussion, and offer training sessions. And so the plan that they have essentially would be meal expenses, lodging, those would be available. And then, yeah, and the other stuff is just kind of how they would do it and what they would have CJC external presenters, CJC presenters, external presenters, and they would be able to the requested funds would cover the coordination of the event by the DA's office. So it's just a statewide opportunity for everybody to get together and go through specific RJ trainings and collaboration and technical assistance.
So there's not a specific topic named in their application?
No.
Okay.
Does the budget imply that attendees, the funding would pay for their accommodation?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. I'm in support of the supplemental funding request?
I have a couple thoughts. Can you just clarify what life stability funds are?
Yeah, it's I'm sorry, I'm trying to go through up here. It's an organization, it's through their contractual services, an organization called Thrive. And it's just it's an added level of support. And then
For the
harm
participants.
yes, for harm parties and responsible for parties as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that the life stability funds, now that I understand that, makes sense to me. Increased personnel capacity with the executive director, now that Vanessa has educated me, makes sense to me. I also am glad to see the supplies/meeting rental space request, since I think one of our questions previously for Deschutes is how it will be more community-based, and so that indicates to me that that's getting in that direction. I am wondering about the background checks for facilitators. I just know that in this space, a lot of times it's really beneficial to have people who may have had involvement in the system. So just there's a little bit of a question mark around the need for background checks, or what purpose that's going to serve. And otherwise, this looks good.
Thank you, Tristan. Any other comments? I see a hand up. Let me see if I can.
I think that's me, Mindy Johnston with Lutheran Community. I can just respond to Tristan's last comment. As an organization, it's not for this obviously program, but we are an accredited organization, and it pertains to insurance that the organization has to have, and we have to run background checks. That doesn't mean that we don't hire or bring on facilitators with criminal records, but it's just basically an accounting that we have to do. So that's what I can answer for us. We have a similar thing, and I'm guessing it's similar for other organizations.
Any other comments on this? All right, we'll move on. The Lutheran Community Services Northwest Restorative Justice, the approved program is that they will use grant funds to expand restorative justice services in Multnomah County via a pilot project to train Portland police officers to refer eligible individuals to the Lutheran Community Services Northwest. Their supplemental funding request, restorative justice resource specialist, supplies, rent, utilities, a training, the Northwest Justice Forum training, membership fees to a few organizations that they are members of, volunteers, facilitator stipend, as well as RJCO technical assistance. Any questions or comments on any of these requests?
Just that I'm thrilled to see a line item for volunteer facilitator stipends.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. And I love that people are putting in rent and utilities and some basic supports for programming. So, and the resource specialist seems like a really good idea.
Yeah, likewise.
Okay.
This is Jimena from Latino Network. I'm also excited to see the stipend for volunteers.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Questions on this? This is the Multnomah County Restorative Justice Alternative Program. The applicant for this is Insight Alliance. The approved program will use the funds to pilot a pre-indictment restorative justice alternative in Multnomah County for young adults in robbery 1 and 2 and assault 1 cases. Their supplemental funding requests is the Ecosystem of Healing Fund, would just be additional funding for that, as well as RJCO technical assistance. Any questions or comments on this request?
Just to note that I'm abstaining.
I am also abstaining. This is Aaron.
Okay, thank you.
The ecosystem of healing fund was already part of, it's just additional funds for that. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what okay. Yeah. Yeah, and gets my vote.
This is Jimena, also gets my vote. Really like to see more direct client assistance funds being put into programs, so in support.
All right, thank you both. Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is restorative justice for Southern Oregon. And the approved program is that they will use grant funds to expand the existing youth restorative justice program known as VIA, and support the development of a potential pilot program, emerging adults in Southern Oregon. Their request is to extend their project period to effectively continue current program operations for a longer amount of time than the current project period.
What a great idea.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Same.
Okay. And then Six Rivers Restorative Justice Program, the approved program is that they'll use funds to launch a restorative justice steering committee aimed at increasing community-based solutions for healing and safety through a pre-charge restorative justice process. And they are asking for a restorative justice program coordinator, a restorative justice practitioner, and consulting services from the New York University Center on Violence and Recovery, domestic violence advocate training, as well as RJCO technical assistance.
Sorry, it's Simon here. Is the program coordinator and the RJ practitioner, are those additional roles? Are they just increasing capacity? What does that
That is a great question. I'm going to actually look that up.
This is Colleen from Six Rivers. Am I allowed to comment?
Let me. Casey, do you have the answer to this? I don't have the budget sheet in front of me for these. Hold on a second, Colleen.
I'm looking it up right now. And
Okay.
yeah, Colleen, thanks for your patience. We're going to go ahead and try to answer on your behalf.
Yeah.
So this was one of the programs that was really doing planning, upfront planning. And so this almost feels similar to what was just put up about extending the program. So this looks like it goes into more action after, from the work of the steering committee. So I just would be interested to also to know if this is kind of a linear sort of following along phase, like the steering committee is really focused, and then these are the positions that either come along at the beginning or there's something that come out of that planning process. So as you're looking through your notes, let's see if that's obvious too. And I know we're asking grantees not to speak at this session, but
All right, so the Restorative Justice Program Coordinator is actually an increase to that coordinator's time from the original application, in which there were 0.5 FTE, and now they're going to 0.8 FTE for the period of December of this year through December of 2023. And they mentioned in their supplemental request that would really prioritize getting staffing accurate for the current funding cycle rather than extending. The restorative justice practitioner, however, would be a new position, but it would be there to support the program with RJ coordination and facilitation for that same December to December period.
Thank you, Casey.
Yep. I support.
Any other comments?
Always glad to see an increase in personnel.
Yep. It's good.
Okay. Well, that is the end of our applications. Thank you for appreciating the urgency of getting those approved. Okay, so we do have a bit of an issue that we've not had here before. So the requested funding for these supplemental requests was about 29,400 greater than what we have available. Okay, so we do need to look at some options for some targeted reductions so that we can get to what funds are available. That's 688,000. And so we've outlined a few considerations for some recommendations from you all to the commission meeting next week. So program specific reductions, they can be any sort of cuts that are made to certain program, certain programmatic aspects, or they can be a percentage reduction to the programs as a whole. That is a consideration. And the other option for targeted reductions could be, rather than looking at those programs, looking at the 2 statewide trainings and support. And those were the line items, which would be RJCO, technical support, and then the Deschutes County request to host an RJ retreat for all of the grantees. Elaine, did you have a question? Okay, sorry. So if reductions were considered to these statewide requests, they would may include a percentage reduction across the board to these items, or one or the other. And when it would essentially still mean that RJCO, the technical support for RJCO, as well as the retreat would still be viable with the cuts across the board. Okay, so just a reminder, when kind of this supplemental round was first considered, the committee supported expanding and enhancing the programs. And so because we do have 2 requests that are statewide, CJC staff recommends that the targeted reductions come from the statewide training and support requests in the form of an across-the-board percentage reduction in order to have the smallest impact on the programs themselves. And so they still would be viable, they still would get funding, both of these, and they would still be able to have an impact across the project period, but we felt like this was a better recommendation or a better way to go than program-specific cuts. However, you all can discuss and come to some sort of recommendation.
That makes sense to me. This is Vanessa. I think that's a great plan.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Elaine, I think I don't know who was next.
Yeah, same thing. I agree with Vanessa. I just think it, and there's ways to offset if it's statewide and people have to pay a tiny fee to attend something like that, especially since accommodation and other things have been built into those budgets. So I think that's a great way to do it. I'd like to hold harmless the program funds.
William? Thank you, Elaine.
I agree.
Thank you, William. Any other comments? Okay, so we will move forward with the commission with that recommendation to make those targeted reductions come from the statewide trainings rather than programmatic reductions. All right, this now is an opportunity for public comment. So anybody who is in this meeting who is not a member of the Grant Review Committee has the opportunity to speak to what has been discussed today. Usually, if you do have something to say, we usually hold for about 2 minutes of time, and then we'll give somebody else the opportunity to comment if needed. So. Where is that thing? There it is. Deltra.
Yeah. Okay, am I heard?
Yes.
Good, good. Teams is less familiar to me than Zoom, and I'm sleep deprived, but I'll do my very best. I just want to thank all of you on this commission and also, or on this committee, and also thank the CJC for this funding. I'm the executive director for Resolve Center for Dispute Resolution and Restorative Justice in Southern Oregon. I am also grateful for the willingness to go ahead and use this extended funding to help us create a longer an extension actually of the work that we're doing right now. We're building a good frame with our district attorney and for actually creating a kind of just I don't want to say pilot, I don't like the word pilot, but a demonstration of the value of restorative justice with young adults. And the longer we can have to really demonstrate that, the better we're going to, the better chance we're going to have some real outcomes to be able to show to the commission and also to legislators. This wouldn't be worth doing if we didn't believe here that this was worth continuing, right? So we do believe this is worth continuing, and we're appreciative of the support to be able to create a long enough runway so that we can demonstrate really what we can do in Southern Oregon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deltra. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. All right, that is all that we have today. I appreciate you all being here. If anybody has any questions or feedback at this point from the GAC, this is the time to do that for any further discussion. We will be presenting before the commission for all of the recommendations that you've made next Wednesday. So, and then next steps after that, if all goes well, we will get these amendments out to grantees by the end of the year. So that is the timeline that we're working with. But if anybody has any comments or anything like that, this is the time. I think Tristan's hand is up.
Hi, yes, I just received an email from one of the programs about a funding request. I was really hoping they were on here so they could just make a public comment about it. Miles, are you out there? Okay, well, I mean, I guess for the sake of just our discussion, I'll just read the email that I just got. Oh, he says he's on the phone and cannot figure out how to speak. Okay, well, I'll just read the email that he read me. So this is coming from Miles Mabry, who is the executive director of Center for Dialogue and Resolution. That's the Lane County program. And he wrote to me and said, we can reduce our budget by 10,000 of staffing to assist. Don't cut statewide efforts.
Miles, this is Casey. I believe if you press *6, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you, Miles.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Tristan. Sorry, I didn't know how to unmute. Yes, I would happily reduce some of our budget line items to keep the statewide funding and efforts going. So that's my only comment. And that can come out of the ED budget. That will be a little rough to figure out, but that's okay. I'll work it internally if I need to.
Thank you, Miles. So this, I guess, would be just considered public comment. So this is something where the Grant Advisory Committee at this point would need to consider whether or not you're going to include that into your overall recommendation to the committee, to the commission.
This is Elaine. I think I like where we landed already. on especially since the total that we're talking about is less than $30,000, and we're talking about an extensive reach where I think we can make up the difference. So to me, that feels more, and I'm sorry I weighed in on the Lane County proposal. I didn't quite recognize the acronym, but it's more general than that. I like the idea of having a shared pickup of that difference. Especially.
Oh, sorry, Elaine, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, just back to what you said about that when you looked at the numbers and the amounts of money people put in for those statewide things, that reducing it did not jeopardize or diminish the possibility of doing it. However, you're looking at all of the numbers aggregate makes me feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say to that point, these are not deep cuts to both of those requests. So
this is Simon. I mean, I agree that I think I appreciate Miles's offer, and it's extremely kind and generous, and actually it's about the group needs, the statewide need versus, like, you know, in each individual organization. I think it's more appropriate for this. I'm conflicted because I'm in full support of our JCO's role, so I didn't comment previously, but I think it's better to not get into kind of reducing the various delivery program aspects, because those are the most important. I wish that Deschutes maybe had kind of coordinated with RJCO and on that request, and maybe the RJCO and Deschutes can actually coordinate on the implementation of their training conference, whatever that would be out. And I think there's a great opportunity for that to be a combined effort. And I can speak for RJCO, I think, to say that we would love to collaborate with them on that, and therefore kind of get more bang for the buck on both RJCO's statewide allocation support and the funding that Deschutes has asked for as well.
thank you, Simon. Any other comments, feedback, questions? Okay, so we will move forward with the recommendation from you all to make the targeted reductions from the 2 statewide training requests. Anything else that anybody would like to comment on or anything like that? All right, I think we're good then. Thank you all for being here. This was just the right amount of time to get this done so that we can get this money out before the end of the year. Really appreciate all your hard work and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
we'll see y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Well done.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.